put your name in the chat or just put a comment in the chat that says, I have a question, and I'll call on you. And if you have a question for a particular panelist, you can ask them directly. And if you don't really care who answers your question, you can just ask a general question and we'll see who feels like answering it. So with that, I'm going to ask each of the panelists to introduce themselves. And this is what I'm going to ask them to talk about. I'm going to ask each of them to introduce themselves with their name and pronouns, their CAS major. All of these folks were both CAS, graduated from the College of Arts and Sciences and also graduated from the MAT program. So their CAS major, the MAT program, and the year they graduated, and then where they're teaching now. So where it is, the grade level, subject areas, anything like that that's relevant, to just give you a little bit of a picture about who's here in the panel. And I'm going to start, I'm just going to call on you all to make it easier so we don't walk on each other's words too much. So I'm going to start with Paige for this one.
Hi, my name is Paige Peck, and I was a math major in undergrad at Lewis and Clark. I was also a transfer student during my second year. And then I was in the MAT Advanced Mathematics for Secondary Teaching program, and I graduated in 2019 from that. And I use she, her pronouns, I forgot that part. And now I'm teaching math, integrated math 2 and 3 this year at Monterey High School in Monterey, California.
Thank you. Ashley, how about you going next?
My name is Ashley Senna. I use she, her pronouns. I majored in biology at Lewis and Clark. I didn't know I wanted to be a teacher. I went to Lewis and Clark for the elementary education, multiple subjects, and I graduated in 2019. I'm currently teaching in the Beaverton School District in 4th grade, all subjects.
Thank you. Sophie, why don't you go next?
Hi, everybody. My name is Sophie Lee. I use she, her pronouns. I attended Lewis and Clark undergraduate, where I got a degree in history. I've always really been interested in education, so my history thesis was about the desegregation of Portland public schools. I got my MAT at Lewis and Clark in secondary education, and I also got my ESOL certification, so English as a second language, and that was in 2017. Since then, I've worked at Evergreen High School, which is across the river from Portland in Vancouver, Washington. I started my career there teaching social studies, and now I am the block team lead for a math, English, social studies group of classes. So I work in all of those subjects. And my goal is to improve the number of 9th grade students who are on track, so passing all of their classes at the end of their 9th grade year. We were at 71% in the year 1920, and we're at 79% so far this year. So we're making progress.
Thank you. And Kay, that means you're next.
Hello, my name is Kay Blankenship. My pronouns are they, them. I majored in theater, specifically technical theater and design in undergrad. And then my MAT program was secondary, specifically for art. And I think it was 2018. That I graduated, I don't remember. Now I teach at Park Rose High School, which is in Portland, kind of up by the airport. And I teach a variety of art classes there. I'm the only art teacher. So all grades. This year I'm doing ceramics, painting, drawing, and next semester I'm adding a crafts class.
Thank you. So you can see we have a diverse group of graduates who have a lot to tell us, or a diverse group of teachers now who have a lot to tell us about their experience. So the first question I'm going to ask, and I'm going to keep putting these into the chat. The first question for everyone is, what inspired you to become a teacher, and why did you choose the Lewis and Clark MAT program when you were making that decision about where to go? And I think I'm going to start, we'll just go in reverse order. So I'm going to have Kay go first, then Sophie, then Ashley, then Paige. And I'll remind you of that if I remember. Go ahead, Kay.
All right. A lot of different things led me to teaching. After I graduated from the undergraduate program, I worked in theater in Portland and in New York for a little bit, doing design work, production work, kind of anything that wasn't acting, really. And that was great, but you cannot make a full-time living at that in Portland. And I knew Portland is where I wanted to be. So I needed to find a different career. I thought about other art avenues. I've always loved art. I minored in art. And it kind of came about at the same time as Donald Trump was elected, where I was feeling like everything sucks. I want to do something about it. And I enjoy being around young people. And so it all kind of just came together to be, you know what, let's give teaching a try. So luckily I had several friends from college who had gone through the MAT program already. I think specifically for English. And so I was able to ask them some questions about it. I also just Googled, I was like, what schools are available to me in Portland that will let me focus in art and focus in secondary, which, if you don't know, means middle school and high school. I knew I wanted to work with older kids. So all of that kind of came together. I trusted the education I would get from Lewis and Clark because I enjoyed what happened in my undergrad years. So I figured it was a pretty safe bet to go to the MAT program as well. Yeah, that's mostly it.
Thanks. How about Sophie?
Yeah, that's a big question. I know it's hard to answer, Kay. So my mom was a teacher. She was a kindergarten teacher growing up. And so I spent a lot of my time in classrooms over the summer, in the mornings and in the afternoons. And it just was a place that felt like home to me. And going into middle school, I learned about a school called High Tech High in San Diego, California. And I got really excited about it and I applied and I got in. It was a charter school. And there, I just experienced like so much joy in education. We were always doing things, creating things, connecting with the community and connecting with teachers. And that really, I saw other experiences and I saw my friends having other experiences in high schools. And I just felt so lucky that I had the experience I did. And I felt like more people deserved that experience. So I want to spread the high tech highway and project-based learning. That's kind of why I went into education. As far as why I chose Lewis and Clark for my MAT, I think it's also similar to Kay's answer, which is I got a really rigorous undergrad education at Lewis and Clark. And so I think I just felt like it was a natural pathway and expectation that I would get the same rigorous education at the graduate school. I also took 2 classes when I was an undergrad. It was education in a complex world and maybe an education practicum. I don't know if those are still available, but I was able to meet some of the grad professors at the undergrad level and build connections with them while I was a junior and senior at Lewis and Clark. And so it felt very natural for me to continue my education with them afterwards.
Thank you. Ashley.
All right, so I was a first generation college student. I came from a very small rural town on the border of Canada and the ocean. And I really just felt like my education was not very much a focus growing up. I actually came to Lewis and Clark because I was recruited to play softball. And so I really feel like the door to education was open to me in my athletic abilities. I really wanted to be a physical therapist or an athletic trainer or something like kind of in the health field. And I just really liked teaching people about like their bodies and like how like we can do such amazing things. When I was at Lewis and Clark studying biology, I did not realize how hard it was going to be. I felt like all of my classmates were like up here and I was like down here. I just did not feel like I was entering in at like this same like rigor that my classmates were. I just felt very much like I told people where I was from and they would like laugh like, oh, wow. Yeah, good luck. I feel very passionate. Okay, so then go to biology. I start doing physical therapy and I realized like this is not what I was meant to do. It was really challenging for me. So I ended up talking with my athletic trainer, and his wife was a teacher, and she worked in the David Douglas School District and encouraged me just to come work with her for a day. I have a lot of energy. I really like kids. And I just am passionate about everyone like doing their best and like getting what they want out of life. So I went in and just completely fell in love. I think that access is so important, access to education, achievement gap, closing the achievement gap. I chose Lewis and Clark because I realized that I began to realize in my undergraduate years how much social justice was important to me, and something that in my education when I was young and growing up had never been developed or cultivated. I did not have a culturally responsive education. I was taught, when we were learning about Indigenous peoples, I was learning about Christopher Columbus, like when we were learning. So that was one of like the big reasons of why Lewis and Clark. I wanted to learn how to be more culturally responsive. I wanted to learn how I could just be a better person, because I hadn't witnessed that in my upbringing, I guess. So I feel like I grew a lot at Lewis and Clark. I continued to go to Lewis and Clark. I really kind of feel like I found my identity at the grad school. I feel like the people who are around me challenged me so much. Yeah, it's hard to answer. I kind of have a lot of emotions about it because, yeah, I just graduated. It's only 2 years ago. But I'm so thankful for my decision to take the chance, because I'll tell you the best parts of teaching later. But that's why.
Thank you very much, Ashley. All right, Paige, your turn.
My mom is also a kindergarten teacher. So like growing up, I also spent a lot of time like in the classroom with her. And actually she was very, she encouraged me like not to go into teaching for most of my life. And I actually really wanted to be a doctor. And I was like on the pre-med track, and I was going to be a biology major as well. But because of a series of unfortunate events, I missed out on, as a transfer student, I needed one class and I missed out on the wait list for it. So I was kind of scrambling, ended up in the math major, which was really, really great. I love the math department at Lewis and Clark, but I just like did not have the brain power to kind of pursue that at a higher level. But I really love like the foundational math, which is, up through like calculus and stuff like that. Like I felt really strong about the importance of that and the applications of it. And I wanted more people to be able to appreciate that. And, but I still didn't really think I wanted to be a teacher. I was kind of looking at other grad school programs. And then I randomly decided to take a class with Liza at the end of like the last semester of undergrad, because I needed to fill in some credits to get financial aid. And I was like, oh yeah, this education, like STEM education class sounds fun. Like I've been interested in, trying to, encourage more people to be interested in math and science. So I took it, and I really loved it. It was my favorite class, probably one of my favorite classes that I took during undergrad. And like Liza was kind of the first person that I felt was a mentor to me in college. So, and she encouraged me to apply for the MAT program. So it was kind of very random, but I also was able to like realize about myself that I've always been interested in teaching. I was a nanny for a long time during undergrad as well. And my favorite part of that was, helping out the girl that I nannied with her homework, like just asking her questions to try to get her to find the solutions on her own. Just that puzzle of, helping people arrive at the answer themselves was really cool to me. So I guess that kind of answers both questions. I picked the Lewis and Clark MAT program just because that was, I was encouraged to do that by someone who was a mentor to me. And yeah, it was a great choice. I'm happy I did it when I did it, and yeah.
You all are inspiring me. I should be a teacher. I don't know. All right, question number 3. Tell us a story. Oops, I have to. Tell us a story about something that happened recently that exemplifies the best things about being a teacher for you. And before I ask someone to start, I just want to say, and we talked a little bit about this at the beginning before you all had signed in. I recognize that this may not be the best time for people to be teachers. It's certainly a challenging time, and there's a lot of things that are unknown. And in my own experience right now as a teacher, it's very unpredictable how things are going to go from day to day. And it's always a little unpredictable in teaching, but I think right now it's even more. So I feel like it's a little bit of a stretch to ask you all to tell a story about something that exemplifies the best things, but I also think it's important for us to remember the good things that are happening even in the midst of challenge. So I am going to ask you to talk about something that happened that exemplifies the best things about being a teacher for you. And I think I'm going to start with Ashley this time. So we're going to go Ashley, Sophie, Kay, and Paige.
Sounds good. Okay, just in general, I think the best part about being a 4th grade teacher or elementary teacher specifically is the connections that I make with my students. I'm with them all day long. They experience so many feelings. You have no idea what they're going through at home. And I just feel like we have so many opportunities with them to just like be inspiring. So one of my favorite stories is just inspiring change makers. So we call them change makers, and it's just I have the class, we do this community circle, and we talk about just like, what do you want to change in the world? What do you think needs to be different? And one of my students who, so she's in 4th grade, but she reads at a kindergarten level, which means she's not quite reading yet. She has a lot of trauma and just adverse experiences that she's had throughout her life. She's moved almost every single year. But this week we were doing our circle, and she just said how much like she never liked school. She loves school now, and that she is gonna change the world because she's going to like go out and be this scientist, because women can do science too, and all people can do science. And so for me, it's like inspiring change makers, like whatever it is that they want to do, like, and just reinforce, like helping provide that foundation. But I don't care if you're 10 years old, you can make a difference. And so that is my favorite part, is just like getting them amped, hyped. Okay, one another story. I have a girl right now who's coding. She's a coding machine. And for me, I don't know how to code. Like, I don't know, but I'm able as like a teacher to come alongside her and inspire her to like ask questions and find answers and bring in different voices who do share or who do know how to code, or students in my class who are we just created affinity groups for students who identify as Black, Indigenous, people of color. And we also made an Asian American Pacific Islander affinity group. And that was because of my kids. They wanted those groups. So it's kind of a bunch of little stories, but inspiring kids to be change makers, and just motivating them to ask questions, but find answers. Don't stop at the questions.
Thank you. I said Sophie was going to go next.
Yeah, it's hard to choose a memory just because I love working with students. They fill me up like every day, and they just do so many cute, silly, amazing, like inspiring things. So I'll just share, I guess today after school, I told you guys my role is trying to increase our freshman success rate. So we are doing a tutoring program after school, and today was the first day, and I was scared that nobody was going to show up. And I go in there, and there was like 15 kids in there. And apparently their goal was to get 10 kids in there. And so it was just so exciting to see the students with Fs making the personal decision to show up and advocate for themselves. And they were talking to me, can I go talk to this teacher? I need to go talk to them about this grade. I'm pretty sure I did this. And it was just, yeah, really inspiring to see them advocating, especially when sometimes teachers see a kid with an F and they're like, oh, they don't care. And it's just like, so the opposite when you actually talk to the students. And another little story. So I do not teach math, but I was teaching math last week because we had a COVID encounter and the teacher had to be out. And we had a student who just really was down on himself, like thought that he was incapable of doing any math. And I didn't hear the story firsthand. It was actually from another teacher who told me it later. But the way that I split up the work that day, I just like assigned one table of kids a problem rather than them doing the whole packet. And that simple change gave the kid like the confidence to think that he was able to do that work. And so he went into his English class telling his teacher, Miss Werlin, I can do math now. Like Miss Lee assigned me one problem and I did all 5 of them. And so just seeing the kids, like giving them the confidence to try and then seeing them run with that, it melts me every time.
Thank you. Okay.
I'm struggling to think of a specific thing, so I'm going to talk about a couple general things, which is mostly built in the relationships that I get to form with young people every day. Yeah, essentially, my job is to show students that they are creative humans and that they can achieve things if they just try. That's like 90% of my job as an art teacher. And so anytime that a kid who kind of like that math student comes into my classroom being like, I'm bad at art. And then later in the process of being in the class is able to be like, oh, I actually did something pretty cool. That's a really excellent feeling to get to like watch them do that thing. And the only reason I'm able to do this for them is because I've built a relationship with them. I've put in the time, I've put in the effort to get to know them, who they are, what they want, do they care about art or not? How can I get them to just put in some effort? I actually did think of a specific one. I had a student come back to my ceramics class today after like weeks of being away. He explained to me that he was like, essentially got addicted to working his job at McDonald's because he was enjoying how much money he was making. And he was like, I need to tone that down so I can come back to school and like pass my classes. Like, great, I'm glad you realized that. And in that one class period, he was able to put together most of a project that my other students had been working on for a couple of weeks. And he actually did it pretty well. And this is a student who doesn't really have any ceramics background. So there was something really interesting about like, if I didn't have a relationship with him before then, I don't think he would have come back to my class at all. But he did, and he's already getting himself back on track to being successful. And he's a hilarious human also, so there's a bonus there. The one other thing I wanted to mention in terms of relationships is I do a lot of stuff outside of my job as a teacher. I host an art club, I host our GSA, I work in the theater, and all of those extra curricular stuff that I do, which is unfortunately not paid. I do that for free. It's one of the better parts of my job because I get to interact with students, not so much as like I'm your teacher boss, but like I'm an adult who's in this room who wants to support you in all sorts of ways, and there's no grades attached to it. How exciting is that? So those extra things that you can do as a teacher if you want, I feel like they really add to like the experience and to building those relationships that then help students be successful in your class and in other classes as well.
Thank you. Paige, your turn.
So mine that I was gonna, I have 2, the one that I was gonna say and then one that happened today. So this one's also kind of about more extracurricular stuff. I'm the chess club advisor at my school. And I think like going into it, I thought like the kids who are going to show up to chess club were going to be kind of like, you know, like the nerdy, like shy kids. Like I thought like, you know, I was very much like kind of stereotyping it. But so we started doing it online last year. And I didn't really see a lot of faces during that time. It was more like kids just playing chess on chess.com against each other virtually. And then when we started meeting in person this year, since the beginning of the year, like every Monday when we have chess club, my classroom is full. Like there's not enough chairs for all the kids who want to be in chess club. And I have like 35 chairs in my room. And it's all different, like all different kinds of kids show up. Like the kids who like are the like too cool for school kids in class will like come in, and they come every day during lunch. They don't just come on chess club days. They're there every day during lunch playing chess against each other. And for me, like, it's really magical because like as a math teacher, like the like game of chess is like a really good way to kind of grow your problem solving skills without feeling like you're like in math class. And so it's just been really cool getting to play against some of the kids and like watching them play against each other, seeing some of the students become like teachers and like mentors within the club, and just like having that space in my room that also kind of like seeps into my classes and into like my lunch period when there isn't chess club happening. Like my room has kind of become the place for like kids to play chess, and I really love that because I think it's a great game. And then the other thing, so today I actually didn't go to school today, and I had a really rough day because my computer stopped working, but I got an email from a student, and I guess I'm pretty sure another teacher had them write like emails to a teacher that they appreciate. But he said, "I would like to thank you for always dealing with my distracting behavior because I really don't think many teachers would tolerate it. Thank you for your patience and for your time." And this kid is like by far like the most handful like challenge of a like behaviorally like the most challenging student that I have this year. And so it was just like really I really like try my best to particularly like have like a level of patience with those students that I think a lot of teachers sometimes find hard to have. And so it was nice to like get that little like, oh, like it paid off. He had this moment of like reflection about it, and like, he's actually been doing work in my class, and I don't know if he's necessarily doing that in his other classes. So yeah, that was a really cool thing that happened today, especially after a bad day. So if you ever become a teacher, highly recommend doing stuff like that too, where you ask your students to write a thank you letter either to a peer or to a teacher, because it's really nice to receive them. Yeah.
Thank you. So our last question that I'm going to ask all the panelists to answer before we go to questions from the audience is, what piece of advice would you offer to people who are considering becoming a teacher in the LC MAT program? And this time we're doing Sophie, Kay, Paige, and Ashley. So Sophie first.
Okay, I think I've got a couple pieces of advice. So I think one, I expected the master's program to sort of be a continuation of my undergrad experience, but it wasn't. And that was good. There were certain things that carried over, and there was a certain amount of common knowledge that I feel like was transferred, but you're with a whole new group of people, you're with new teachers, experiencing new things. So don't quite expect it to be like a linear, you are across the street, but it's not like a linear experience necessarily. I would also say spend time volunteering in schools. I thought I wanted to be an elementary school teacher for most of my, time where I was considering being a teacher. And I worked in elementary schools, and then I was able to work in a middle school and a high school. And I realized that I wanted to work in a high school. So if you still have that time, volunteer in different schools with different ages to see what really fits with you. And then the last thing is not about the MAT program, but I think it's something that all of us sort of echoed in our answers. And I feel like it's just so important. And it's that relationships are truly everything. Like if you spend the time to get to know your students and understand them at an individual level, it changes the educational experience. And the students, like Paige was saying, who, have struggles in school, they respond so much differently when you spend time with them and see them first as a person and then as a student.
Thank you. Kay.
This is interesting because we are in a time when it is very strange to be a teacher, and I think it's also very strange to prepare to be a teacher, because who knows what the next several years are going to look like. So I think this is a little disheartening, but I think just be prepared for the uncertainty of what being a teacher is. Because like I say, who knows? Who knows what next year is going to look like? Who knows what 2 months from now is going to look like? I also wanted to point out, this isn't so much about LC, but just in general about being a teacher, is that a lot of your job has nothing to do with the content that you love. A lot of my job has nothing to do with art. A lot of my job has to do with just trying to convince students to do anything. I think teenagers right now are really disillusioned with the world. And so there are going to be some battles in terms of just, can you get a kid to even put the pen on the paper? At least for older students. I don't know how it is with the elementaries, but when you can get past that, when you can build on those relationships, like Sophie was talking about, like that's where you hit gold. And those are things that you can absolutely do while you're in the MAT program. One of the best things about this program specifically is the year-long practicum in the same school all the way through, is that you get to see those kids from day one to the very end of the school year. And other programs, you get like a couple months here, a couple months there, they might move you around a bunch. And so you're not really able to build those relationships. So in the LC program specifically, you get that opportunity to actually feel like a real teacher, and really build the relationships with students across the year, and get that experience of what is it actually going to be like when you're in your own job. I think that's it. Yeah.
Thank you. Paige.
I guess this is like a little bit like kind of out of the timeline of like right now, like thinking about going into the MAT program, but something that's a big part of like my experience as a teacher is being involved in our teachers union. And so I just feel like I feel sort of obligated to say something about that. Like it's really, really important to make sure that like you're being like once you are, looking for teaching jobs, if you go to through the Lewis and Clark MAT program, like be really, really critical about like the school district and the administration that are interviewing you for the jobs, because like if you end up in it's so much harder to do your job if like you don't have support from your site administration or your like district level administration. So like I'm in a place where I really, really great site admin, and that's what makes my job tolerable. But there are like other teachers in my school district who are just absolutely like done. Like they're like, people are having a really, really hard time right now because they don't have that supportive site admin, and our district is a mess. So just definitely like try to be as picky as you can, like if once you get to that place where you're looking for jobs, because I think the burnout that teachers experience like definitely can be greatly impacted by the like leadership level of whatever school system you're working in. I actually had a conversation with one of my coworkers who used to teach at my school, went to like a fancy art school in LA where she was getting paid a bunch more money, but like the culture there was just really not positive. And she ended up coming back and, taking that pay cut just to be back with like this really supportive admin team. So yeah, just like definitely be really critical and like picky when you're looking for a place. I got really lucky that I found this spot and now I feel like I can't ever leave. So definitely try to find that if you can.
Thank you. And now Ashley.
Yeah, I want to echo what Kay said about the year-long placement at Lewis and Clark. That was the student teaching was so important for me. I learned so much being in the classroom, like at the beginning and at the end, that supported me when I made that transition to being a first-year teacher. Because like being a first year teacher is not easy, right? We like anything, you get better with practice. And so your first year, like it's important to lean on the people, I I texted one of my professors at Lewis and Clark my first year. Like I called my classroom management teacher crying one time. Like she gave me advice. Like I think make connections. The teachers and professors at Lewis and Clark, make connections with them. I feel like they were just so aligned with my outlook on like who I wanted to be as a teacher, and were really inspiring role models. So make those connections with your professors, but also with your classmates. A lot of people I feel like who are considering the MAT program, there's just so many opinions, conversations, like very deep conversations, and you have the choice to make do the personal work of like joining in on those conversations and like speaking or writing or however it is that you express yourself. But it's like, just when considering Lewis and Clark, just remember that like you're going to get out as much as you put in. So just make your connections with your peoples, because you're going to want to lean on them, because it's challenging. And if it was easy, everyone would do it. Is that cliche? Maybe. But I still am in contact. Yes, it was only 2 years ago, but I'm still in contact with people from my cohort, and we are at different districts in the Oregon area. But we communicate, like, for example, about the union stuff, like, oh, what is your school doing? And making sure that we're not only advocating for our students, but also advocating for ourselves and what like our vision is for education. Yeah, I think that's all.
Thank you. So I'm seeing that Sophie made a comment. 5 years later, still in contact. And I'll just say, I reached out to all of you all, and I hadn't seen some of you for a while. And so we are still in contact. And I always tell my candidates, you know, you always can come back to us. We are always here for you. So we make that true. And I think that it is. The other thing that can happen is you can become a mentor teacher for a future teacher candidate after you've been teaching for 3 or 4 years. And so that's another opportunity that you have to stay connected. We're going to move to questions from the audience. Before I do that, I'm going to paste in the chat. If you have questions and are interested in learning more about the program sort of in detail, we have info sessions that are online. And if you go to that link, you will see elementary info session schedule and the secondary info session schedule. And you can sign up to come to an info session. It doesn't matter if you're not ready to apply for the program. Anyone can come to an info session who just wants to learn more about the program and meet faculty who run those. So those are run by faculty. So I'm going to suggest that. I think, looks like we have the pet hour has begun, which is nice. I think what we'll do is anyone who has, yes, I will upload the recording of the Zoom. And we're also going to send it out in an email thanking you all for attending. So you'll get a link to the recording. So if you weren't able to be here for the whole session, you'll be able to access that recording and see the parts that you missed. So I think the best thing to do here is, if you have a question, just type in the chat, I have a question, after your name, and then I will ask you to say your question. Don't type the whole question, just say I have a question in the chat. Does anyone have any questions? So Janet Bixby, who is the Associate Dean at the Graduate School, has a question. Go for it, Janet.
Well, thank you all. This has been really great to have you do this. I appreciate it. And I guess one of my questions is, what is some of the best work that you're seeing in terms of racial justice in your schools or districts? And how does your work allow you to engage with racial justice? You can also talk about the challenges if you want. Thank you.
Anyone can answer who wants to.
All
So
right. I will say a little something. So the district that I work in, we have a equity team that has 2 people on it. Also, our schools, we each have a kind of committee, I guess you could call it. It's called ABAR, anti-bias, anti-racist, where groups of teachers come together. We've also started trying to implement affinity groups for students to just be able to come together and just talk about their experiences. Also trying to really bring in voices from the community in. So at the school I'm at specifically, our student success coach identifies as Asian American Pacific Islander. Unfortunately, at our school, as with many schools, we are a majority white female staff that identify as, I'm losing my words, sorry, but that don't identify in the LGBTQ community. Apologize for my words lost there. And so bringing voices in so students can see representation, I've found is like very, very important, bringing families in. And so just remembering that like we are not the holders of all knowledge and that there are other people. There's so much work to be done though, so much work. We have so many shortcomings, but I'd like to just think about the growth that we've made. And just in implementing some of these small changes. When it comes to systemic changes, it's been nice having these ABAR committees because we've been then all meeting up in one to then try to like make real change. It hasn't happened yet, but just like that kind of brainstorming, coming together, having like a similar vision. That was a really messy answer, but I hope you guys understand what I meant.
Does anyone else have something they want to add to that question?
Yeah. So I teach at Park Rose High School, which its main claim to fame is being the most diverse high school in the state of Oregon. So we have students of all backgrounds. But like Ashley said, our staff is predominantly white, predominantly straight. There's not a lot of diversity. We're getting better. Some of the more recent hires have been of different backgrounds. And one thing that our district implemented at all of our schools last year while we were doing distance learning were affinity groups. So there are small groups for the white-bodied staff, and then there is one large group for the BIPOC staff. And I don't know what the BIPOC folks do, but the white staff, we meet at least once a month in our small groups. We have discussions. We, pardon my language, try and sort our shit out in terms of what it means to be white staff teaching predominantly non-white students. And so there's some good that has come from that. I do not know really how that is translating to student experience at our school, because there has not been a push from admin or the district level to do anything beyond that, other than having us be in these discussion groups. So one of my frustrations is that I feel like there has to be more leadership on this, honestly. And like our district, as far as I can tell at our district level, it's all white staff again. So there's a lot of systemic changes that need to happen. There are some old timers, shall we say, in the district that need to go, honestly, so that there can be room for better ideas, honestly. So there are definitely shortcomings. I'm glad that they are trying to do something, but I also am hoping that we get past the whole like, oh, good job us, aren't we being so equitable sort of mindset, and we can actually implement some bigger changes for our students, because we do have a lot of trauma, we have a lot of disadvantaged students, we have a lot of other things that we need to deal with that interfere with school. And so, yeah, I'm really hoping that they will put more effort and more planning into how we can roll those things out and not just leave it as okay, now you as teachers have your discussions and somehow that's going to address everything.
Thanks. Anyone else? Sophie?
Oh, go ahead.
No,
Oh,
go for
sorry.
it.
Go for it, Paige, and then Sophie can go next.
Okay, I was just gonna say, one thing that we've noticed that there's in our district, there's definitely been some frustration from parents, especially about feeling like kind of left in the dark on decisions that are made at the district level, particularly, and so our district is also like basically like minority white district with a majority white staff essentially. And so a lot of parents feel like they're just left in the dark about things, and the district feels like they don't need to communicate or have input from parents and students on important things like redistricting and COVID stuff and reopening schools, all that kind of stuff. And so there's been a lot of like heated school board meetings. And so one thing that we saw was like, the parent groups like haven't like, they're obviously still frustrated, and like they keep coming to these meetings like because the district keeps not, meeting with them and having those conversations. So as our teachers union has been reaching out to the parent groups to try to like coordinate with them like how we can advocate for students as within our organization. And we do have an equity team within our teachers union that specifically meets with those parent groups to try to figure out like how we can basically have a seat at the table more so than is currently happening. So just like being able to identify where there is a lack of inclusivity, and like obviously that's, we haven't fixed all the problems or anything like that, but teachers and students also historically in our district have been able to like organize themselves to make change if you're not seeing that happen from the top down level. So yeah, that's what's going on with us.
Go, Sophie.
Thanks. Yeah, I would say that we are getting kind of a lot of lip service. That's the stage we're in. So we have a couple of different equity groups. We meet once a month to talk about equity as a staff, but I haven't really seen impacts on like the actions that are occurring around our school. I feel like it's still a lot of work is falling on individual people who are supporting clubs outside of school. That's pretty much where the work is happening currently. But I did want to spotlight the use of data. That's something that we have started to do a little bit better this year, and really using data to pinpoint these are our populations who are not performing at the same rate as our other populations. And I feel like that has really pushed our conversation forward. And that can be, qualitative data, but it also can be quantitative data. So we've done a lot of empathy interviews with our students where we're trying to understand what is your experience here at our school and what are the changes that we can make based on our student input. So I feel like that has probably been the most powerful part of our equity work so far, is data and talking to our students.
Thank you. I do see one other question in the chat from Damaris. Do you want to tell us what your question is? Are you there still?
Oh, yes. Hi.
Hi.
Question was, is there, are students taught how to interview with schools and like what questions they may ask, and can they do mock interviews at the graduate school?
How about Ashley and then Kay?
At the elementary level, I was actually, okay, so before this, I was like, oh my goodness, I need to prepare for this panel. I'm not prepared. And so I was going through my Google Drive, and I actually found a document from one of my professors that said like possible math interview questions. And it was like an assignment that we all worked on together and asked each other questions. And then all of our teachers did that. They didn't necessarily take us through mock interviews, but at the elementary level, but they did give us examples of what questions we can expect. And I feel like throughout the year, I developed my like pedagogy or belief about teaching, where really any question that was thrown at me, I felt like I knew I deep down had the knowledge to answer it. And then just practicing with those people who made connections with and sharing notes and ideas. And again, not only preparing for the interview of like you doing the interview, but what do you want out of a school, and knowing that like you're also interviewing them. That was huge for me. Linda Griffin says it again and again, but like you're interviewing them too. Like you have to really know how like your worth, and remember, like, yeah.
Kay, did you want to say something?
Yeah, at the secondary level, I think we did some similar things in classes, but I remember like 3 specific instances. One was they brought in administrators from different school districts just to do like mock interviews with us, essentially. Like I remember this one guy put us on the spot, was like, give me your 60-second elevator pitch as a teacher. And we all went, ah! But it was like a good pressure to be like, okay, now I got to be on. How do I chat up this person quickly so that they want to talk to me more? So that was really useful practice, like low pressure way to just get a feel for it. And then we also had a small job fair just at the school itself, where actual districts came with real positions that were open. And so we got to do sort of like a mini job fair. I think there were maybe like 12 districts or maybe more, all crammed into the little chapel. That was very helpful. And then the last one was we all went to the really big job fair at the convention center that happens in the spring. And I can't remember, Liza, if you were there the year I went, but there were faculty there to just support us, if we wanted to, like, I'm about to go talk to this person, what should I do? But we had been prepared in terms of like how to talk to people, how to make a resume, blah, 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 all that sort of stuff. And at that job fair, I actually got an interview for the job that I currently have, and I was hired before I even graduated. So it worked out really, really well. And I think part of the draw for them was they've had a lot of student teachers from Lewis and Clark at Park Rose High School. So the principal knew what she was getting. I could even talk to her about one of my current classmates who was like student teaching there. And that just sort of snowballed into me getting this position within like a day of meeting her. So I think part of it was the reputation of Lewis and Clark, and part of it is that I felt really prepared to just walk right up there and go like, I see you have an art position. Can I talk to you about it? And it just clicked. Not everybody is going to have that exact experience, but I think if I had not had that prep work through Lewis and Clark, I think I would have been much more nervous to be in this room full of thousands of people and feel like I'm going to go up there and I'm going to stand out to these people. So, yeah.
Anyone else want to add anything about that? Paige?
I had a very similar experience with the job fair. I got the job that I have right now, like the day that I interviewed with them there. And I just want to like those two, the one that happens at the graduate school, like the mini job fair, and then the massive one at the convention center, like those experiences themselves, like we had like the prep work of like making our resumes and doing some like, practice like Q&As with each other, but just being there and like doing, rapid fire like interviews with people is like enough experience just for like, okay, you go to your ones that you're like, probably don't want that job actually, but I'm going to use it as like my tester interview before I go and talk to Portland Public Schools or whatever. Which like I ended up the one that I'm not going to move back to California. I'm not going to teach at Monterey High, but here I am. So definitely there's a lot of prep work for going out and getting interviews and jobs and stuff for sure.
All right, well, that takes us to exactly 6:30. So I'm going to say thank you to everyone. I see Sophie's comment, and I will just say as a program director, I hear that from principals all the time. They want to interview graduates from Lewis and Clark. They call me all the time asking, do we have anyone for this position or that position? I'm still getting emails for jobs that are open this year. And I know that Linda Griffin in the elementary program is getting them as well. So Lewis and Clark does have a really good reputation. And I think I will just say that listening to you all today makes me proud to be a person who works at Lewis and Clark and to direct the secondary program and to work with faculty who work in the elementary program. You all are amazing and doing incredible work. And I want to thank you publicly in front of everyone here for coming and giving us your time and your experience and sharing your enthusiasm and your tremendous love for kids and schools today. So thank you all very much. Remember, if you're a CAS undergrad, please, or not an undergrad, even a not yet undergrad, consider coming to an info session and having a little bit more personal conversation with a faculty member about the program and getting some of the nuts and bolts filled in for you. So thank you all very much. Have a good rest of your evening.
Thank you.
I will post the recording on the website.
Thank you.
Thank you. It's great to see you all. It's really a pleasure. And again, it really does make me proud to work at Lewis and Clark when I listen to the kinds of things you're saying. So thanks so much for being with us tonight.
Yeah, thanks for, it's fun being back here. I remember I went to this like when I was undergrad still. And I think, Kay, you were there at the one, you were like a panelist.
I've done this every year. This is like,
she always says yes.
I
They always say yes. It's
I
fine.
do, yeah.
I know, I was like, I want to meet you all now. It's like, I want to get on the same page. Something
I
about
know.
high school teachers.
Yeah,
Have a good
they're
night.
pretty cool. All right, good night, you all.
No,
Take
Liza,
care.
I was just gonna say, Liza, you are actually the one who pointed me in the direction of Linda Griffin because of Alex Navarro was my
Oh,
roommate.
yeah.
And so she was, yeah, anyways. Have a good night.
Bye,
Good
all.
night. Nice to
Bye.
meet you.